There is no getting around it. The climate crisis is forcing us all to make changes, no matter where we live in the world. Hello and welcome to this new edition of Echo Africa. Thanks for joining us. And a big hello to you too, Sandra.
Hi, Chris. Nice to see you. Well, it is true. Temperatures are climbing all over the globe and water levels are rising or falling in ways we are clearly unprepared for. Germany, Spain and Turkey are suffering from forest fires. In Italy, local authorities have already introduced water rationing measures. The whole continent has been hit by a heat wave. Climatologists reckon there have been no comparable drought situations in Central Europe in the last quarter century. We'll be looking at how people are reacting to this and what they're doing to cope. But we start our show in Tunisia, a country in the Middle East and North Africa region. Ecosystems there are particularly vulnerable to climate change. Extreme heat causes drought and desertification, which in turn is also reducing water availability, degrading soils and increasing food insecurity. Now, farmers in Tunisia are extremely worried about crop yields as they scramble to find ways of adjusting to the new conditions.
Once again, a wheat field near the city of Jendouba stands in flames. The Majada Valley in northwestern Tunisia is among the country's most fertile regions, and wheat is one of the most important crops grown here. But blazes are occurring more and more frequently, and the fire department often spends days fighting them. The flames spread quickly due to extreme aridity, largely caused by climate change.
When we look on historical climate data, we can clearly see that the temperature since the beginning of the 21st century has risen, and we are now, generally speaking, also above 1.2 degrees above the pre-industrial level. And this is also the case for North Africa and also for Tunisia.
It's 45 degrees Celsius, just 50 kilometers away in El Kreb. Farmer Abduraouf Al-Fawi isn't willing to sit around and hope that his wheat won't also go up in flames. So he decided to harvest his crop in mid-June, an entire month earlier than usual.
Farmers fear fires and monitor the land day and night. We must harvest now, even if that reduces the wheat's quantity and quality.
So although he has less to sell, his harvest is assured. Better than everything going up in smoke. Environmental engineer Hatchet has long been following the effects of climate change in Tunisia, but this is not the only problem that the North African country has to cope with.
The Ukrainian-Russian conflict as well as climate change mean Tunisia is confronted with many challenges as it attempts to meet its domestic grain needs, especially in a market where prices are increasing every day and where grain is scarce and highly sought after.
Tunisia normally imports much of its wheat from Ukraine. Should these imports fail to materialize, Tunisian farmers will need to supply more, but they're already suffering from the heat. In the long run, strategies are needed to enable and maybe even increase grain production in these times of climate change.
There are a lot of many different approaches, adaptation measures that can be taken. So, for instance, they could use water-saving technologies, for instance, drip irrigation. This is always also quite cost-intensive, but there are even in Tunisia subsidies for these kind of technologies.
Other ideas include improving seeds or planting cover crops to prevent soil erosion. These ideas are already being tested in Tunisia. For Abduraouf Al-Fawi, such changes can't come soon enough. They're important not only for his own operations, but for his country's food security too. But for now, he's just doing what he can to survive the heat.
Moreover, if the heat wave in the region continues and temperatures go even higher, it could cause problems for the agriculture workers in bringing in the harvest. Even in Europe, the summer heat waves have spread over the continent earlier than usual.
That's right, Sandra. People in France, Spain and Germany have all been preparing for torrid conditions. In Italy, drinking water is already being rationed, and farmers are also facing the prospect of crop failures.
Rice farmer Giorgio Uccellatori is worried. He's come to measure the saline content of the water he uses for his crop. All the farmers in the region have the equipment needed to check that salt water isn't spoiling their fields.
Foam means the salt levels are too high. We keep an eye on that so we can immediately shut off the inlet if need be.
In this region, more and more seawater is seeping into the River Po. If a rice farmer cannot flood a field with fresh water, their entire harvest could be in danger.
Everyone is worried about this because of the rice shortage. As supplies run out, it's becoming a problem for the whole supply chain.
The Po Delta should be one of the most fertile regions in Europe. Usually it has plenty of fresh water, but since November it hasn't rained enough and the Po River is running dry. As water pressure decreases, seawater seeps inland. It has already crept about 15 kilometers upstream, forcing farmers to abandon once abundant fields. Now there is a plan to raise barriers. Since that will not help immediately, residents in the lower reaches of the Po River are demanding that more water be drained from power plant reservoirs in South Tyrol.
Italy has a very clear law. When it comes to water use, it says that people come first, then agriculture, then the rest. But the economic value of water is often so great that this is easier said than done.
But in South Tyrol, the situation is equally worrying. A power plant at the Zoccolo Reservoir in the Ulten Valley has come to a complete halt. The reservoirs only fill to 4% capacity. There were 2/3 less rainfall than usual last winter. With not much snow left on the peaks and glaciers that have long vanished, there is little snowmelt to be expected.
If we were to continuously deliver the quantity that Veneto has requested, all the storage facilities in South Tyrol would be completely empty within 20 days.
Some people in northern Italy are already talking about a war for water, and the summer hasn't even begun. In the Po Delta, basins for retaining more fresh water are currently under construction. If rainfalls cause the river level to rise for a few hours, the basin fills with water. Once the level falls again, the gates close to prevent salt water from seeping in. Water and salinity levels have to be constantly monitored.
It's becoming harder and harder. This year, it became extremely difficult. We always have to be prepared, not only to protect the farmers here.
The Italian Water Users Association has calculated that 10,000 more such basins are needed in northern Italy to ensure that fields can be irrigated in the future. But Giorgio Uccellatori needs a solution now. The salt content of the water is below critical levels today. But he fears that he will have to give up rice farming soon.
I was born and raised here. This is my home. We'll try to stay here if possible.
Whether for agriculture, electricity or drinking, water is a precious resource and increasingly rare.
The unprecedented heat waves hitting Europe are leaving people and animals searching for shades and farmers struggling to water their crops. It's particularly hot in buildings where many people sit together. Several schools in Paris are part of a project that's set to benefit the French capital as a whole. Let's take a closer look in this week's doing your bit.
Europe is experiencing especially high temperatures this summer, with no relief in sight. Children are particularly vulnerable to the effects of heat. That prompted a school in Paris to transform its asphalt-covered schoolyard into a cool and shady area, more suitable for the warming climate.
We wanted to create permeable spaces with permeable soil that can absorb water, which is also good for the trees, since it allows them more direct access to water. Wood chips were spread on top of the soil, along with other natural materials and vegetation, which will be enriched in the coming years.
So far, 75 schools across the French capital have transformed their playgrounds under the Oasis project, which was co-funded by the European Union and the city of Paris.
There will certainly be fewer cases of heat stroke, fewer children troubled by high temperatures than before. They can go into the forts or sit by the wood chips, which are much cooler than stones. They'll be comfortable in the elevated forts, which are open and ventilated, and they're shaded by the trees.
Eventually, all 700 public schools in the Paris area are to get a similar oasis of green, to the benefit of the children who attend them.
And how about you? If you're also doing your bit, tell us about it. Visit our website or send us a tweet. #DoingYourBit. We share your stories.
What do raccoons, crayfish and killer algae have in common? They're all invasive species transferred from their original habitat and introduced into new ecosystems, either on purpose or by accident. We head to South Africa, where a water plant native to South America has developed into a green plague. But there is a remedy.
A green mass where open water should be. For decades, the problem at Hartbeespoort Dam in northern South Africa has been growing exponentially. The lake is overgrown with water hyacinth, a plant from South America, now clogging bodies of water throughout Africa. The invasive plant grows extremely fast. The ecological consequences are dramatic. Combating the plant has been difficult despite intense research.
Water hyacinth is one of the world's most problematic aquatic weeds. It's been present on Hartbeespoort Dam since the 1970s, and it's a massive problem. They've tried to remove it manually through herbicide applications, but it's still a massive problem. And because it can cover up to 40% of the dam surface.
Researchers in South Africa have been trying to control the invasive plant for years. Well sealed off from the environment, scientists are looking for the water hyacinth's natural enemies. And they've made a big find that's only 4 millimeters in size. The inconspicuous water hyacinth plant hopper is also a native of South America. The insects reproduce just as rapidly as the water hyacinths, and the little guys have a big appetite.
In as much as it's a challenge to rear this plant hopper, we have been successful. We keep every record of insect that is coming out of this facility. Just over 10 years, we have released over 1 million insects in this facility. Last year, we have about over 300,000 that we have released throughout the country.
The procedure is not without its dangers. There are examples worldwide of species used for this purpose becoming pests themselves. Lengthy testing procedures are in place to prevent that.
One of the major concerns we have in biological control is that an insect that we release could feed another plant species. So we mitigate that in this facility by testing these candidate insects on various plant species, including native species and crop plants. And we need to do this testing to make sure that the insects that we release are what we call host specific. This testing is very thorough and sometimes can take years. It's important for this because once an insect is released, we can't get them back.
The tests for the water hyacinth plant hopper are finally complete. The bugs are now being collected and packed for transport. Together with a leaf of their favorite food, they're on their way to the Hartbeespoort Dam. Rosalie Smith of the Center for Biological Control sees to it herself that the insects reach their destination. The denser the water hyacinths grow, the better it is for their little enemy. They can multiply here quickly.
Our approach with releasing the plant hoppers is using them as a green herbicide. So as many as releases as possible early in the summer, that allows the populations to build up quickly. And that also just allows them to damage the plants as soon as possible so that the plants don't expand their growth over the dam.
Water hyacinths form dense mats that drift across the lake. When they collide, their underwater roots become entangled and block out any light. Gradually, a huge, dense carpet of plants forms. They can completely overgrow bay areas, which is not only an ecological problem, but an economic one too. Many people at the dam live from tourism. Each year, columns of workers remove the plants from the water with long rakes. It's a slow and laborious process that only works on smaller waters. In huge areas like this, though, the tiny helpers have to step in. The traces of their work can be seen on the water hyacinth's leaves. Holes and brown areas testify to the success of the organic pest control. The nibbled on and dead plants drop to the ground and slowly decompose underwater. You can also see them from space. Within 2 years, the growth on the dam has decreased from 40 to just 5%.
This is a site where we did frequent inundative releases of the plant hopper. And we know they're here in high numbers because they jump around as I pick up a plant. And what their damage look like is they cause the leaves to become brown. The leaves also recoil on themselves. And so the plants in this site is heavily damaged, and that's basically what we would like for the rest of Hartbeespoort Dam.
In the evening light, the success of the operation can be seen particularly well. Swarms of plant hoppers fly over the water hyacinths. Nevertheless, the plant will probably never really disappear. It spreads too quickly. Even so, large open water areas have re-emerged on the Hartbeespoort Dam since their introduction. This promising result could lead to the plant hoppers being used on other infested waters.
From tiny creatures curbing plants that spread like wildfire to one of Africa's big five, the rhino, whose numbers are perilously low. Despite this, Namibia and South Africa have made it legal to hunt rhinos in some areas. In other African countries, they are often hunted illegally, especially when people can earn money by selling their horns.
But there is hope. Let us go to Kenya now, where a private initiative is trying to protect the animals and involve the local community in their efforts.
Getting too close to a rhino can prove deadly, but for Ranger Salome Lemalasia, it's no problem. She raised Loikipu from infancy, feeding him with a milk bottle after his mother deserted him. That was 6 years ago.
My relationship is like that of a mother and her son. I treat him like my son. I've taken care of him. I've raised him. I'm the one who understands all his problems. When he gets sick, I'm the first to know before anyone else notices. Even the grass that we've fed him, sometimes he rejects it and I have to look for something else to feed him. I take care of everything that concerns him.
The Sera Wildlife Conservancy lies around 350 kilometers north of the Kenyan capital, Nairobi. The centerpiece is the Sera Rhino Sanctuary, a protected area covering 107 square kilometers for the critically endangered black rhino. There used to be more than 100,000 worldwide. Now there are just 5,500. The sanctuary is home to 20 of them, including Lojipu, who is now being released into the wild. The area was once a hot spot for poachers, but there are now far fewer problems because rangers like Salome Lamalasia patrol day and night. Some rangers are even equipped with automatic rifles. Today, things are quiet. The rangers focus instead on finding out where the rhinos like to gather and monitor how healthy they are.
When you wake up in the morning, you have to look for them and account for their whereabouts, making sure that they're all present and okay.
The rangers' presence has paid off. Since the system was set up in 2015, the sanctuary hasn't lost a single rhino to poachers, and the animals are thriving.
We expect them to increase in number so that we can even provide other conservancies with rhinos, because we have so many. Their health is good and they will continue to grow even bigger.
The local community is also benefiting from the sanctuary. The Stera Wildlife Conservancy was founded in 2001 to resolve conflict between ethnic groups by involving them in a joint project.
The Sarah Wildlife Conservancy was started because this area was not just being used by local communities, but also herdsmen from other communities who would graze their animals here. That meant it was an area of contention where there were disputes. So we mainly began the Conservancy to foster security among the communities sharing its borders.
The land for the sanctuary was made available by 2 local ranchers. Today, the rangers are meeting with a group from one of the farms to update them on the latest developments. The farmers are also involved in making decisions for the sanctuary. 60% of the revenue from tourism, for example, goes to the community.
The conservancies are important because they've taught the community how important it is to protect wildlife. Before, they were not aware, but now they can see the importance and value of conservation.
All the children from the community are benefiting as these wild animals are generating income and putting food on the table. Employment has also improved because a majority of the locals are able to earn a wage. Then we wanted to get animals that were not common in the nearby conservancies. So that's why we decided to start the Rhino Sanctuary.
Running the Rhino Sanctuary has been a learning experience for the rangers. Lojipu is a prime example. His mother deserted him because the rangers handled him shortly after he was born.
What we learned was, once a calf is born, we should just monitor it from afar. We should not get close, but wait until we're able to learn more about it, the calf's sex and other details. So that's what we learned, to just monitor from a distance and keep making sure that the calf and the mother are both well.
Lojipu is now finding it difficult to adjust to life in the wild. He'll have to cope with being lonely for a while.
When he gets close to the other rhinos at night, he's often chased away because he has a human scent. When he's chased away, he has nowhere else to run to. So he comes to my house, and then it's difficult not to touch him.
But Salome Lamalasia has noticed that Lojipu is now coming to her less. She's confident that it won't be long until he's able to manage on his own in the wild.
We certainly hope everything works out well for them. We've come to the end of this week's program. Thanks for watching, and we look forward to seeing you again pretty soon. For now, it's so long from me, Chris Alems, in Abeokuta, Nigeria.
And it is also time for me to sign off from Kampala here in Uganda. But don't forget to share with us your thoughts and ideas with us on all our social media platforms. We always enjoy hearing from you. I am Sandra Twinovidio. Bye-bye and take care.